I'm Catherine Brunch of Canine Support, and thank you for joining me to celebrate 50 years of Tellington TTouch. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Lindy Dekker, who is a Tellington TTouch instructor for companion animals, but also for equines. Welcome, Lindy, and thank you for coming along today.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's very exciting, and because you're actually in South Africa, aren't you?
I am indeed
Whereabouts?
in Johannesburg.
Marvelous. I
It's
had to
supposed to be
look.
summer, but it's not quite so summer today. Yeah.
Oh, it's not summer. We've got torrential wind and rain here.
Okay, well, we've had rain for a week, which is unusual, but anyway.
Ah, you sent it our way.
Yeah.
So I did some Googling, Lindy, and I found out that it was back in 2001 that you attended your first T-Touch workshop for horses. And since then, you've been organizing the practitioner training clinics in Johannesburg since 2002
For horses, yes.
for horses. Time flies though, hey?
Pardon?
So time flies.
It does indeed,
It
yes.
does, it does. And today I've invited you along to talk about mindfulness in T-Touch. And I think sometimes some people might think of mindfulness as meditation, but what kind of brought you to think more about mindfulness in T-Touch?
Well, I always see, when we talk about T-Touch, we talk about we're working with our animals mindfully. And it made me think about what is the definition of mindfulness? Because, even though we all speak the same language, we all have different interpretations. So I found a little course on mindfulness and thought, well, this is good. It was free. So I went on to it. And yes, it did get, it was sort of some of it was doing some kind of meditation, but again, it was just being mindful of what you're doing, how you're breathing, how your body is relaxing, where you are in space, etc. And then working with the different concepts, and a lot of it was based on Jon Kabat-Zinn's sort of attitudinal foundations. And so um, as I went through this, it fits so well with what we do. So I thought it was useful to kind of put together using the attitudinal foundations to help us as T-Touch practitioners understand what we mean when we say we're working mindfully.
Absolutely. So a kind of meditation as in not so much sitting and closing your eyes and doing if you like, but actually being kind of a little bit more present, but in a meditative state. Would that kind of sum it up a little bit?
Yeah, it's about being present. That's
Mm,
the main thing, is being
yeah.
present. And there's a very sweet little cartoon that I have in the presentation of mindful versus mindful, because mindful is that you're walking with your dog or your horse and you're thinking about your shopping list and where you're going to go tomorrow and what's actually happening at home and so on, which is mindful. But if we're mindful, we're actually just enjoying the moment. We're seeing what our dog or horse is seeing, breathing the same air, etc. So being present with them at the time. So, one of the definitions is about paying attention in the present moment. So we tend to very often, I know I catch myself when I'm on my horse, I'm riding, and then I'm thinking about, well, what am I going to say to so and so, and how am I going to do this? And then I catch myself and I go, hey, hang on, you're with your beautiful horse, work with him. So that's what, to me, is the definition of being mindful, is actually being with your animal and paying attention to them and to yourself. So to the communication and the combination of the two of you.
Oh, I love that. And that's a really good, like, put your mobile phone in your pocket and, don't like scroll or text whilst you're walking, isn't it? those sorts of things.
leave your phone at home.
Yeah. Well, I tend to take it with me just in case I need it, because you never know. But yeah, it's definitely yeah, sticking
Absolutely.
devices away and being present with them. That's yeah, that's kind of one of my golden rules is I never answer my phone when I'm walking my dogs.
Mhm.
So that's golden rule so that I can just have that time with them and enjoy their walk with them as well.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, Lindy, do you want to talk through Jon Kabat-Zinn's Attitudinal Foundations of Mindfulness with
Well, we
us?
can, or you tell me what you would like to talk about then
Yeah, so
specifically.
well, let's have a look at those 9 attitudinal foundations. So we've got non-judging first of all. How would you kind of describe non-judging in with regards to TTouch?
Well, I think it very, very clearly plays a role specifically when we're doing our observations,
Mm,
because when we're observing an animal, it's so easy to make a judgment. And under making a judgment, what I include coming to conclusions. So when we see an animal doing something that we can say, oh, look, he's limping, but that's because blah, blah, blah. Okay. And as soon as we make a decision about why something is happening, we close the door. So we close the door to any further possibilities of why it might be happening, because we've decided that's why it is and that's the way it's going to go. And it's not easy because we like to be know-it-alls, and we like to know everything, and we like to be able to say, oh, that's that because that and so on, and so all sorted out, tick tick tick, finished. And one of the big things with working in TTouch is when we do our observations is to just look at the animal that we have in front of us in that moment and taking note of what we see, but not making decisions about what we see. And as a result of that, we have much more information in a way, because we're not, as I said, coming to those conclusions and shutting the door. So very much non-judgmental in that aspect, and obviously also trying not to be judgmental about the people with their animals of, well, she's not very nice to her dog or whatever, finding out what the story is before you make a decision. So yeah, and also being kind to yourself, not making judgments of, oh, I'm so stupid, which is very hard to do, but just trying to see what you see, write it down. One of the favorite TTouch words is that's interesting, because we just see things and say that's interesting rather than, oh, but that's because of XYZ. Does that make some sense?
absolutely. Absolutely. And I so my bull mastiff Remy, I quite often would say, oh, she's so accident prone because she would scratch herself and do all these crazy things. And I'm like, I really need to stop saying that. Do you know? And when I stopped saying it and just went, these things happen, do you know, she stopped being accident prone.
There
It's
you
as
go.
simple as that, isn't it? It
Yeah,
really
yeah,
is
absolutely.
removing those labels and looking that kind of, oh, they're stubborn or they're naughty or those trying to get rid of those sorts of labels so that we aren't putting that judgment on the dogs, isn't it? And that in itself can start to help to change their behavior.
Absolutely. And that comes back to that definition of mindfulness, of looking at paying attention at a particular moment in time. So we're looking at them in that particular moment in time, not making decisions about whether they might run into a tree or not, but just saying, right now they're standing in front of me and they're standing very square, and that's, and that's that, rather than having these decisions of, but be careful, there's a box there and there's a tree there and they can fall into that hole. So again, that definition of mindfulness, of being present and at a, paying particular attention at a particular moment in time.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Next on the list, I've got patience.
Well,
Our dogs teach us a lot of patience, don't they?
and the people too. Everybody, patience in a way also relates to the pause that we talk about, and that the pause is so important because we need to give everybody a chance to process. Because when we are working with our animals and people and anybody around, we're doing some work and we're putting out information, and then we need to give that individual time to process it. Something happens when nothing happens, so giving them that time and being patient with it, and very often too, it may take a day, it may take a few days, it may take a month before that information has been fully processed through that individual's body. So yeah, patience is absolutely key as we talk about the pauses as well. And again, being patient with yourself as well. If you make a mistake, it's like, and that's the great thing with TTouch. If you do something and it goes all wrong, you just change it. So you can be, you don't have to beat yourself up and get impatient because it's not working. You can actually just change something and carry on. So yeah, patience is absolutely important. So important.
I love that. And the pause is, the power of the pause. Just so much can happen when you just wait for a minute, isn't it? And give the dog or the person the opportunity to just process and then make the choice afterwards, isn't it? It's just, I love it. Love it. Awesome. Next on the list, I've got beginner's mind. Explain that one to me.
Well, especially I think probably more in the dog world than necessarily in the horse world, although the horse world too. We very often become experts at a particular breed or a particular discipline that they do or whatever. And then we make decisions or judgments based on that. So being able to say, and I must say we hear it a lot of like, oh, well, that's a Jack Russell for you, Jack Russells, that's the way Jack Russells are. Okay. And we need to kind of lose that. Obviously, you will take breed traits into account when you're working with the animal, but trying to completely forget all your experience and all your knowledge. I mean, it's really hard to forget your knowledge because it's so hard won, but just try to lose that and be completely innocent. And this is where it's really great when you work with breeds or with species that you don't know, because then that's where the work really comes to the fore, because we don't have any preconceived ideas, and that is where beginner's mind really comes in, of lose all those preconceived ideas and just look at the animal you see. And an example was that one of the horse trainings, we had someone who didn't really know anything about horses, and a friend of mine had a thoroughbred who was quite spooky, and there were all sorts of things, and he kept going, oh my goodness, and oh, and his owner was like, oh my goodness, and this fellow took this horse, and Catherine, was the horse's person, was standing at the side like biting her nails, and he was like, okay, let's go. And the horse just went with him because he didn't have all these preconceived ideas of like, this might be scary for you and this might be scary for you and so on. He just said, okay, we're going to go and do that, and then the horse was fine with it. So very often our expectations and concerns then play off the animals. So having a beginner's mind really gives them the opportunity to show what they can do.
Absolutely. And have you got any tips on perhaps how owners could look at their dogs with that beginner's mind, just to help them kind of get the idea of how to look at them in a different way?
Well, I think for me, it's always about, pretend you've never seen that dog before. So pretend
Mm.
you don't know anything about dogs, and just, yeah, try to empty your brain of all those things that you know. And especially when it's very hard when you're looking at your own dog, because you know your dog so well. And it's really, try to pretend. Very often when you, especially working with your own dog, if you imagine that this dog is somebody else's dog, it's a client's dog, and start working with them, and you'll be amazed. So many people are so much nicer to to their dogs when they don't realize, when they try to pretend it's a client's dog, because you're more careful then, because it's kind of, we tend to get very casual or relaxed about it and go, oh, my dog just does that, and we need to take a step back and say, actually, why is he doing that? Because we kind of get used to it, and we both fall into that same trap of, this is what my mum wants, and this is what my dog does, and if you can step back and say, that's interesting, it gives the animal a better chance of getting out of that particular habit, because they aren't pushed into it by us saying that's how they are.
And you
So
can start to see these things linking in together because you can like remove the labels, don't judge, and be
absolutely,
patient, pause, and then you
yes,
can have your beginner's mind. So we're kind of stacking them
yeah,
up a little bit, aren't
exactly,
we?
exactly, yeah. So it
Okay.
all follows through, but it follows round as well.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Right, next I've got trust.
Yeah. So you need to trust the work, especially in TTouch. Just do the work. We trust that something is going to happen, because sometimes we think, oh, well, I did that and nothing happened. And as I said, with the patience aspect, if you do something and you leave it, and maybe a day or two later, you notice, hey, something's changed. And in order, to gain the trust of whoever it is you're working with, you need to be trustworthy. So it's really very careful. We need to be careful that we are trustworthy in order to gain the trust of those animals. And I think, from, again, going circular back to being non-judgmental, the more non-judgmental we are, the more likely we are to gain the trust, because we're not pinning labels on. So we're just saying, here you are in your beauty, whoever you are, and let's see what we can do together. That will gain trust, because we're also paying particular attention. Because we're being mindful, the animal feels listened to, and the more somebody feels listened to, the more they will trust you.
Yeah, and it's about removing that suspicion, isn't it? Especially when it comes to like husbandry activities and things like that. So, I've got to clean out the dog's ears and I'm like, here's the bit of cotton wool I'm going to use. Have a look, have a sniff. Are we okay with that? And the same with the nail clippers and all those sorts of things. It's rather than trying to kind of sneak up to them
Uh,
and do something, it's about like, here, this is what we're all about today. How are you going to feel about that?
yeah.
And really giving them the opportunity to be heard, like you said, and listen to, and okay, maybe not right now, we'll try again 10 minutes later, that sort of thing, giving them that chance as well, isn't it, to build the trust with them.
Well, the thing is, this is where the pause also comes in, because we might do something, and they go, oh, no, no, I can't cope with that. And we give them a pause and we say, okay, I see that was a little difficult for you, so let me chunk it down and do it another way. And as soon as you feel that somebody has actually heard your concerns, you can trust them so much better. You
Yeah,
know,
I love it.
Edie Jane always had this wonderful analogy where she said, you know, if you are in a car with somebody and you feel that they're driving too fast, if you say, you know, please, could you slow down? You're driving too fast. If the person who's driving says, oh, don't be ridiculous, I've been driving for 25 years, I've never had an accident, still doesn't make you feel any better. But if you say, oh, I'm terribly sorry, you might think in your mind, well, I've been driving for 25 years, I've never had an accident, but never mind. You slow down, then they can trust you because you have listened to them and you've done something about it. And that is a huge step in terms of being trustworthy, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Then we've got non-striving.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because, you know, we want to set a goal, all right, but these things are in sand, not in stone. So, you know, when we start working with an animal, we might have a goal to say, I'd really like to make it more comfortable for you, or, you know, I see that you're struggling with this, so let's see what we can do here. But we need to be really careful not to turn it into a competition, okay, and not to have to win, or not to have to succeed in, you know, the endeavor, because sometimes whatever it is that's bothering them turns out to be something completely different. And if we really get stuck on that pathway, we put a lot of pressure on our animals. So trying to be yeah, cautious, sort of, but not without pushing for things. So if we're asking our animals to try something, if they find it difficult, we'll break it down and do it in smaller pieces. We don't want it to be a competition. It's supposed to be, you know, together. It's not about who's going to win this thing.
Yeah, and I love the phrase that I heard Robin say, have a plan and prepare to deviate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So you can have a goal, because, you know, if you just wander in and waft in and say, oh, we're just going to have a lovely time. If you're doing work with a client, they're not going to be all that thrilled about it. But so you might have as you say, you have a plan, but it can, you know, change in any way that's
Yeah.
possible, and being flexible, really, rather than being absolutely fixated on what has to happen.
Yeah. And perhaps kind of removing expectations as well, isn't it? It's that kind of, I think back when I got Remy as a puppy and I'm like, oh, she's going to be this great dog and I'm going to take her everywhere and we're going to do all these great things together. And she arrived and she was none of that. Absolutely
Yeah,
none of it.
yeah,
And I think, our relationship and the trust that we developed was so much quicker once I got rid of all those expectations as well,
absolutely,
isn't it?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And instead
And
she
if
taught
as
me
soon as
other
you,
stuff.
I was just going to say, as soon as you've let that go, you'll find all sorts of other surprising things that come in, which is really
Yeah,
fun. Yeah.
yeah, it's great. And then acceptance.
So with acceptance, what we talk about a lot in relation to the work is that we talk about meeting them where they are. So we find the animal where they are at that moment when we start working with them, um, meet them at that point, rather than, you know, the difficulty I think for a lot of people is that they're like, oh, this is a lovely gentle way of working and it's going and it's very calming and so on, and you've got this dog that's flying, bouncing off the walls. You know, holding them down and saying you are going to be calm now, you're going to love this, is not really going to be very successful. So we need to look at meeting them where they are and slowly kind of, we talk about the work as being a dance. So we join them in the dance that they're doing, and then we slowly start to lead it so that it kind of calms down and goes to where they can start to think, etc., etc. But it's really important that we can do that, and I think that's one of the great things about the Tellington TTouch method is that we have the groundwork as well, because it's not just the body work. So very often I found that if we have an animal that is really bouncing off the walls, trying to hold them down and do calming touches very often isn't going to work. But if we can go and do some groundwork, have them move and slowly get them to move slower as we go, then we meet in a mutually comfortable place. And I think one of the great things is, because of the work that we do, we're offering them different choices, and we're like, can you do this? Would it be okay would you be able to do this? And I think that, somebody said at some stage, if no is an option, yes is so much more valuable. Because so often we especially working with animals, we tend to say, can you do this? Right, let's go. Okay. So we don't give them the option of actually saying, well, no. But if we give them that option, and then, one of the sort of flagstones of the TTouch work is, if it's not working, change it. So it's easy that if they say no, we say, oh, okay, let's do something else. But if you get a yes, then it actually means yes. So it's much more important that way. So in that way, and we don't have to change absolutely everything about everybody just because somebody thinks they might need to change. It sometimes you get a completely different outcome. As you said, we've all been there. You get this puppy and you think, this is going to be the perfect dog. I've got all these tools in my toolbox, and we're going to be going everywhere, and everybody's going to love them and so on. Oh boy, do we learn from that? Because each individual is different, and so it's really
Yeah,
important that way.
yeah, it is definitely. And another one is letting go.
That is
Um,
probably the most difficult thing in the world to do, is letting go of the outcome. We are so goal orientated in our world, so we tend to say, right, this is what we're going to do, and we do all the right steps and so on, and then it didn't change, and then you go, oh my goodness, but I must have done something wrong, and it must be a disaster, and you go home and you slit your wrists and fall on your sword. And actually, we have to just let go of that outcome. And the great thing is, if we let go of the outcome, then every event in the process becomes important. While if we have that outcome absolutely fixed, it links in with the non-striving. If we absolutely stuck on, this is what this dog is going to do by the end of the session, then we disappoint them, we disappoint ourselves, and we put a huge amount of pressure on ourselves and the animals. So letting go of the outcome, and it can be really difficult because we really want to help them, and very often, it's a case of an animal that has been hurt or whatever, and we want to make them better, and we have to step back and just let go of that outcome. And it's very, very difficult, but it is so powerful if we can do it.
yeah, and it kind of comes back to that, let's just see what happens. But also how we are within TTouch, we're able to chunk things down into such minute steps that it actually speeds up the end result anyway, doesn't it? Even though it might seem to take longer, but actually the learning sticks better because we've chunked it down into these little steps as well, isn't it? So it's yeah.
Well, it comes back to the trust aspect, all of those things that, and the pauses,
Yeah.
all of it all links together
Yeah.
because and as I said, if we let go of that outcome, then as we're working, when we see things that are happening, we can go, oh, that's interesting, and we might end up on a completely different path because we've seen something else that is going on, which is maybe for that animal much more important than what we thought was important. And because we can let go of the outcome and not be absolutely fixated on this is the path that has to reach that goal at the end, we can be, as you say, much more successful in the long run because we're listening and we're saying, oh, that's interesting. So maybe that's where we go, and we have to forget that goal that we set there and deviate completely from it.
Yeah, I love it. And I love this one, gratitude.
Yeah, an attitude of gratitude.
Yes,
it
yeah,
it 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 really helps. If you're grateful, if you've got that attitude of gratitude, you can't really be angry at the same time. And when you can't be angry, you can be calm and you can be present, because when we have that attitude of gratitude, we also, as Linda said, if you smile, you're using so many more muscles than anything else, and so you're really bringing that whole uh, feeling of gratitude, which helps the animals to feel less pressurized as well. So being grateful for who you have with you, and just nothing breeds success like success. So really being grateful for every great step, and that business of praising every small piece that we have is so important, because the minute somebody says to you, gee, you did that well, then you become better. So that gratitude is so important in terms of encouragement, and but not encouragement in terms of yay, go 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 go, but encouragement of like, wow, that is fantastic. That gratitude for that being, just doing something really helps so much in terms of being more successful.
yeah, definitely. And I heard someone say this week, gratefulness amplifies happiness.
Oh,
I
I'm
thought
sure it
that was
does.
really
Yeah,
nice. I thought
yeah,
that was a really nice thing. And it absolutely, it really does. But like you said, you can't be angry if you're feeling grateful.
yes,
And I know from myself, I was walking my rescue dog, Chloe. She's ever so good, bless her. And out of nowhere came this off-lead dog barking and shouting its head off at us. And Chloe, she just kind of like went behind me. It was like, Mum, you deal with that. And I'm like, okay. Do you know? And I came home and half of me was like, oh my God, whose dog was that? And I was like really angry. And then I flipped it and went, I'm so grateful that I had Chloe with me and not Remy, because it would have been a completely different story with Remy. Do you know? So there was that moment of, oh my God. And then actually, no, I'm super grateful that that happened with Chloe and nothing else happened apart from the
yeah,
barking. So
yeah.
it is that, isn't it? And it can take away that anger and negativity when you start to put a grateful spin on it.
Absolutely. And I remember um, Linda saying that she practices that every day. She thinks of 5 things that she's grateful for, and the more blessings you think of, the more blessings you get, so to speak. So it's definitely the way to go, as best you
Yeah.
can. Yeah.
Which kind of leads us on to generosity, isn't it? And I like to think that, you know, if you're generous, then the universe sends that back to you in response as well, isn't it?
Well, I think also, yeah, just doing things without expecting reward for me, that's what generosity is doing something without expecting any reward and not expecting praise or whatever else, but just doing something, giving of your heart. And you know, as you say, the more you give of your heart, the more you get back. So I think it's a very valuable tool to do. And also with I mean, that sounds very cold to say it's a tool, but you know, talking in these kind of aspects, it's it's very rewarding because you're not expecting a reward, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think, I started learning TTouch and it's great. And, the dogs are calmer and they're all relaxed. And then I start learning more. And then, several years down the line, when I got my rescue dog, Chloe, she was, in a very bad state, bless her, very fearful of humans. And, I'm giving her these little TTouches to help build the trust and boost her confidence a little bit and help her to just feel safe. And I think it was at that moment in time I realized the power that came back to me by giving that time to her. Do you know? And I think with TTouch, it's very much we're doing this stuff with our animals, and they're enjoying it and they're feeling calmer and more relaxed, and without kind of realizing it's having that same effect on us as well, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's one of the great things about TTouch too, is that, you know, they've even measured brainwaves and things where people doing the touch work with animals, and they measured the animals and then they measured the people giving it, and the animals, the receiver got a bit more than the giver, but the giver also gets a huge benefit from it. So it's such a fantastic methodology because everybody feels better.
Yeah,
And who wouldn't
absolutely.
want that?
Yeah, most definitely, most
Yeah,
definitely. So
yeah,
I love that. Jon Kabat-Zinn, thank you for your Attitudinal Foundations of Mindfulness. Fantastic stuff.
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
it's just brilliant. And I think something, I was awake at 5 o'clock this morning. Uh, long story, but I was lying in bed just thinking about chatting with you today. And I kind of, it's about, we're human beings, not human doings. And I think we need to do less and be more. Just it's something I think that I've talked about a lot this year, with clients and friends, just being in those moments with your dog. And I remember back in the summer, we had, ongoing heat wave and getting up really early in the morning, walking the dogs before it got too hot. And then we would just sit in the garden and be, and
Mm.
it was just like the best 5 minutes of my entire week. Just observing the blue sky and the cows in the field and just looking at my dogs and being so grateful to have them in my life. And yeah, we don't have to do these things and be mindful for hours on end. It can just be moments, can't it? And all minutes, especially when it comes to being with our dogs.
Yeah, and as I can't remember who it was, but I found a quote somewhere which said basically that mindfulness isn't difficult to do. You just have to remember to do
I like that one too.
it. Because it's not difficult. It's just we just have to stop and think, oh yes, slow down. And as you say, one of the biggest things about this work is less is more, and it is a huge. If we can just do a little bit mindfully, it is so much more powerful than doing a whole lot mindlessly, so to speak.
Yeah, I love that. That's brilliant, Lindy. Lindy, I've got one more question for you. It's a
Yeah.
biggie.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
What's your
Hit me.
favorite? Yeah, what's your favorite tea touch and why?
Am I allowed to have more than one?
Well, do you know what? We're
Because
trying to just one, if you can, just
okay, all
one,
right.
but
So probably
maybe a one and a two if you
okay.
really can't decide one.
Well, probably my favorite tea touch is probably the raccoon touch. And the reason why is because it's so small and precise, and it can be so incredibly powerful. Uh, Specifically, when working with horses, one does sometimes get one's feet stood on, and I also have a tendency to walk into cupboards and doors and things like that, and it is amazing for stopping swelling and bruising, and it's just the most incredible touch, and so that for me is my favorite.
That's a really good one. I like that one. And for people at home that might not know what the raccoon touch is, Lindy, can you give us a very quick demonstration?
Sure. So the raccoon touch is just using the tips on of your fingers, and you're just doing a little circle and a quarter with those tips of your fingers. And it's just obviously depending on where you are. If you're on a bony part, you're going to be doing it very, very lightly. And especially around injuries and bruises and things, you will do it firstly around the area and then slowly move in. And it builds up, it can build up trust amazingly by doing, if an animal's got a huge injury, you obviously won't be able to just go straight in because there's just going to be that don't touch me. But if you can go around the outer area first, then as the body starts to recognize how it feels, you can actually very often get right onto the injury because it is so gentle but so powerful, because it's almost like a little laser touch, because you've got your fingers together. So I think it's that's my favorite.
Yeah, and I use it with Chloe quite a bit because she has arthritis and she gets kind of like just hardness. It's just tension, isn't it, that on her hips or near her back. And I lie there at night and I'm doing these little touches around that. And 3 nights in, I was doing some touches. I literally felt that tension just melt under my fingers, and I'm lying there in bed going, oh, wow, this is so cool. Do you know? And I was just like, amazing, absolutely amazing. So yeah, that's a great touch. Thank you for sharing that one with us.
Okay, pleasure.
Awesome. Brilliant, Lindy. It has been lovely to have you here. Thank you so much for coming along and sharing mindfulness with us. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.